Okay, good morning, everyone, or good day, different times in different areas.
Yeah.
And welcome to another talk sponsored by FEZANA Religion Education Committee, designed for our wonderful religion teachers. As you know, with help from volunteer religion and accredited teachers, we have been working on age-appropriate lesson plans in subjects such as prayer, religion, the Gathas, Persian history, comparative religion, and a teacher's guide to be made available to all religion teachers if they wish to use it. We hope to have most of the lesson plans on our to-be renovated website by 2022. There will also be a section on the website called resources for religion teachers to post their material to be shared with other teachers. Today, we are very grateful to our age-appropriate lesson plan Gatha team, which actually are a threesome, but unfortunately, Ms. Mandana Pishtadi was not able to join today to share a presentation of their technique for teaching the Gathas to the teens and to share a couple of the Gatha lesson plans with us. It is with great pleasure to introduce our speakers. Ms. Mitra Dinyari was born and raised in Tehran, Iran, in a Zoroastrian family. She migrated to USA in 1979 with her family. She lived in Atlanta, Georgia until 1987, when she received her doctorate degree in pharmacy and then moved to California. She has been working as a clinical retail pharmacist for the past 33 years. She has also been an active member of California Zoroastrian Center, CZC, involved in many different committees. Her main goal as a Zoroastrian is to spread Zarathustra's message. She has been a volunteer teacher at CZC for 24 years. For the past 15 years, she has been teaching the Gothic concepts to young adults in direct relationship with everyday life. Her hope is to empower Zoroastrian youth to be better human beings by following the Gathas. Ms. Fariba Pir Ghaibi was born and raised in Tehran, Iran, and migrated to USA as a young adult to further her education. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Clinical Laboratory Science and has been working in a clinical laboratory at a nonprofit hospital for over 30 years. She is passionate about sharing Zarathustra's message with the world and has been an active member of the Zoroastrian community in Southern California in different capacities or for over the past years, from education, membership, and public relations committee to one term of board of directors at CZC. She continues to teach a Zoroastrian ethics teen class at CZC and has been the English section editor of California Zoroastrian Center journal known as Chehrenama for the last 12 years. It is with pleasure to invite Ms. Mitra Dinyari and Ms. Fariba Pir Ghaibi to start their presentation. I'll go ahead and make you co-host.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Fariba, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a background of how we got where we are today. Both of us attended Sunday classes and Avesta classes all through our childhood, through our teen years, and graduated there and thought we knew everything there was to know about Zoroastrianism. Then fast forward in the US, both of us came across the Gathas, a translation of Gathas. No one ever taught us Gathas. No one even mentioned it. All we knew is we memorized the Hord Avesta and learned about the festivities and the traditions of the Zoroastrian religion, but not one word about the Gathas. So when we got here and each of us in our own various way got introduced to the Gathas and saw the message, the core message that came directly from Zarathustra to us, we were both infatuated by it. And it became our mission to send that message forward, to start teaching the youth instead of memorizing a bunch of words from the Avesta called the prayers that they don't even know what it means. Teach them the meaning of what it means to apply the principles of Gathas to everyday life. So we've been doing this for 15 years. Now, this full disclaimer up front, neither of us are scholars, neither of us have an education background, and neither of us have any claims to be a good translator of anything. It's just what comes from the heart. It's the passion and our understanding of what we got from the Gathas and how we can apply it to everyday life and try to bring it to life for the teen session to make sure they can relate to it on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here. Let's see, that's the wrong one. This is what I want to share. There we go. So basically, the Z concepts kind of became our understanding of the Gathas. We don't actually recite the Gatha words to them because kids zone out, especially this age group that we're teaching from 14 to 18 have a real short attention span. And we ourselves have noticed even over the last 15 years of teaching it, as more recent years, it's been more and more challenging because kids have become very quick with the computers and their iPhones and you can't hold their attention span for that long. So starting to say and recite things that don't mean anything to them will go right over their head and nothing will get absorbed. So we try to get a practical aspect of it. So it would be our understanding of what the basic principles are. Principles of Sapanta Menu versus Angra Menu, and refer to the different yasnas where Zarathustra actually talks about. The concept of Fershukerti, the concept of Ushta, Ahyoyasa, Hamazurbin, which actually is not from the Gathas, but also Yasna 52 for the advice to the bride and groom to win through righteousness. Sorry, I think I went in the wrong direction. So initially we do incorporate some history in this that has nothing to do with the Gathas, because the kids need to have an understanding of why we are as few as we are today, where we came from, and what kind of persecutions Zoroastrians had to overcome to get where they are today. Briefly, very briefly, history timeline we give up. We talk about the Zoroastrian religion as compared and how it compares and contrasts with other religions. We talk about Ahura Mazda, and we talk about what Ahura Mazda meant to Zarathustra, how he defined his Ahura Mazda, and Dana Venkoi, and what is a living prayer, and the Homata Hukta Havarishta, and what are the Gathas, and how is the Gatha different than the Avesta. And the two prayers, only two prayers that we actually recite every class with them in the original language is the Eshem Muhuan Yatahu. And we can talk about those for sessions because there's so much meaning in those two little prayers. We do talk about house of song versus house of deceit, heaven and hell in the Zoroastrian understanding of it. And of course, Yankee Hotam as well. We talk about Amisha Spantas, each of them at length. We talk about Sochian, we talk about how the Zoroastrian religion is descriptive and reflective versus prescriptive, which is the Abrahamic religion. We talk about Ashavans, and of course, we already went through the slide, the various concepts of the yasna. This can be related to some day-to-day examples that they can relate to, like an example of something that can happen in interactions in school with a peer, classmate, a teacher, or something they observe that they're not even directly involved in. So that's how they can go, okay, so this means that, so I can put this in use for that concept. So just saying that, I'm going to move on to Mitra, who's going to explain more. And part of this will be shared with, as Artemis mentioned, in the lesson plan for the teachers. This will be a couple of examples we have that we share in class.
So good day to you all. We do appreciate you thinking that we can offer something to you. This is different. We came across this because we wanted our children to understand how simple but profound the messages of the Gathas are, and how you can apply it to everyday life, from the time you wake up in the morning until you graduate from school, until you get married, you go and work. So what we do in class, and we never had these lesson plans before, we're just offering this because dear Artemis asked us to do so. And it's a good idea, because then you have something concrete that you can go back to. And when you talk about something, you say, see, this is when Zarathustra 4,000 years ago thought about this concept and had a song about it. So we use all these yasnas as references. We don't necessarily recite it. We don't necessarily want them to understand the meaning of it, because in their mind, in this time and age, it will make more sense to understand what a good mind is. Vahuman is the first concept. Vahuman is always on top of everything that we talk about. So when I'm in class, when I talk about a good mind and the fact that we are different than other religions, we are depending on our good mind. We don't depend on Ahura Mazda. The message is that you are in charge of your own life. So when we talk about Vahuman, as you see on this lesson plan, which is the Ahya Yasa, and in it, it's talking about the good mind. If I can just tell you, this is the translation by Dr. Jaffrey, and we had other translations also. It is just the simplest one. And we're giving you guys this example. If you choose to use it, this is what we do. This is just our way. Our demographic is responding to this. So it talks about Mazda, wise God, and the fact that I pray first, I ask for the support through progressive mentality. Progressive mentality is what we're going to focus on. Progressive mentality means that please be aware as a person, as a human being, that you have a mind that is progressive. You have a mind that can guide you, but you have to take care of it. So at this age group, when I teach it, I'm in class and I'm telling them, you were given this good mind. This is the suggestion. You have a good mind, but you need to take care of it. Just because you have it doesn't mean anything. I am here to tell you that this good mind that is up in your head, your brain, your mentality has to be nourished. And then I go into the fact that as high school children, students, you are facing drugs, alcohol, peer pressure, bullying. All of these things can affect that mind that you have. And they need to understand that good doesn't mean happy, hunky-dory. Good means that you have a working mind that you need to flourish. You need to use the potential that you have. So a whole class is about how you take care of your good mind and how you can just focus on the fact that if this good mind can make wise decisions for you, everyday life. We focus on the fact that this is your life, according to the Gathas, but you're in charge of it. You're in charge of it because you have the ability to use that good mind. It is, and I give them examples like, this is me, this is my examples, that is just like a car. When you have a car, it has an engine, and the engine is good, and they tell you that you can go forward, you can go backward, but you're the one who has to shift that gear to go forward. You have to make an effort. It is you that drives that car. So these are the material from this one verse of the Gathas, this one example that we are presenting to you. We have 10 of these lesson plans, and there can be just 50 of lesson plans, but these are just examples. You have to make it your own. Each person is different. The way that I teach my class is different than the way that Fariba does. But the concepts are there. The concept is Vahuman, the good mind, and how you should nourish it for it to work, how you have to upload this computer that you have up top of your neck, that you have to input all good information, all the wisdom that you can acquire, all the knowledge that you can learn, everything that is going on. Be careful of what you learn and how you learn it and why you're learning it. So all of that will become wisdom, and all of that would make you have a better life. It is always about having a progressive, better life. So these are the material for the teachers. These are the terminology that is used in that verse of Gathas. These are the examples of it, the meaning of it. And this is just a reference. After that, you make it your own. You have to just use the examples. Then we have here that this was our lesson plan. We have not implemented it yet because we're still working on the word Vahuman. We are still teaching our teenagers in our class week after week, so they can get the fact that Vahuman is the top of the line. You have to understand the capabilities that you have and the responsibilities that you have with your mind. And then after that, we will go to this lesson plan. And this is everyday life. This is about COVID-19, the pandemic. Every single one of these teenagers, they experience it. And if you see here, we're just telling them, you experience it. You were supposed to stay home. You were supposed to be doing your homework by yourself. Some of parents, could not help you. You were on your own. You had to rely on the mind that you have, and you had to actually work hard. So it was frustrating. It was scary. It was lonely. And this was a year of their life. So they all remember. That's why, in my opinion, being a Zoroastrian and practicing this religion is a living religion. You go by what is happening around you. And then we connect this lesson to the Gathas. We do say that in the Gathas, the first verse suggests that through progressive mentality, one can overcome difficulties. So they see that this philosophy of 4,000 years ago is relevant today. And hopefully with all of these lesson plans, because we connect the things that Zarathustra said in the Gathas 4,000 years ago, they see the fact that it applies today in everyday life, in their high school, with their friends, at home, because it is just logically correct. So, and after all that, the good mind will achieve your happiness. Then the activity for students is that all these questions, because when you ask them, so what did you learn? A lot of them shy away and they don't want to talk about it. But when you ask all these specific questions, they have to think about it because it's personal. Through this exercise, these are the examples. It says, we are giving the examples like, how did you work in isolation? How did you budget your time? So they're each different. And they have to come up with the answer. So they have to think about, oh, this is what happened. And then how did they deal with it? Did they deal with it correctly? Did they use their good mind? Did they seek help? Because their mind says, okay, I can't do this, so I'm going to ask for help. A lot of little details in everyday life, when you bring it up, then they get the connection, hopefully. And then it's just all these relationships. These are all questions that make him understand what happened. And then how, like the last question is, how did you entertain yourself in a way that complied with the government mandates? Because government a year ago said, you cannot gather in the park. All the boys in high school, you cannot play basketball together. This is real life. And why did they say that? Why did you have to comply? Why didn't you comply? All of these just simple questions will bring this one verse of Gathas into life. And they may not remember it, but we're just giving them all these pieces of information so they can put it together and see, wow, this message of the Gathas is so simple, but it's so profound. And the takeaway lesson, these are different sections of each lesson, is that we just emphasize the fact that you must use your good mind and progressive mentality to do the right thing. And then we introduce the concept of Asha. So we went from Vahuman to Asha. And it does take more than one lesson plan for them to understand how important the woman is and then how it connects to Asha. All of these concepts are interconnected. And that's the beauty of this religion. That's the beauty of Zarathustra's message, that they're just bold messages, but when you put them all together, that's life. That is a progressive life. That is how we're supposed to live. We have a second example. This is another verse of the Gathas, which the meaning is, like I said, we present them with the Gathas. We'll tell them this is the verse of the Gathas. We don't ask them to memorize it, to try to say it. If they want to, by all means. But our mission in our classes are for them to become better people, stronger people, people who think that I can count on me. This is our goal. And this verse of the Gatha, as you can see, says, hear the best with your ears and ponder with a bright mind. This is a matter of choice. They need to know that they are given choices in life and they have to take the best choice. I tell them that you don't get to choose until you know enough. A baby does not have a choice. The parents make 100% of the choices. And as you grow older, as you learn more, then more and more choices are given to you. And you better know how to pick or you can't progress. And this is how it starts with, this verse of the Gatha and saying that we are presented with choices every day. From the time we wake up in the morning, you have to choose at this age to brush your teeth or not, to speed when you go to school or not, to study for your test or not, to play when you're not supposed to play instead of studying or not. And all these choices have consequences. So this is a life lesson. This is not a religious thing. Being a Zoroastrian is not just having a religion. It's know how to live a good life. And in this verse of the Gatha, this is our learning target. We wrote it down, that because of that mind, that mana that you have, Bahuman, then you're able to make the right or wrong decision. And the material for the teacher, for those who choose to use it, is the Gothic word, and then what it means: clear mind, bright intellect, man or woman for each one, and choice. And right here, I usually mention the fact that, yes, choice is very important, but as you see in this verse, there is gender equality. So you can't just throw all these things together for them to understand how important, how beautiful the Gathas are, that they mention man and women on the same verse of the Gathas. So they're equal. They have to have equal opportunities. Gender equality is important as a Zoroastrian. So they know that if they live with their sister, or they live a boy or a girl, doesn't matter. They should feel that they're equal. So this is another part of it. We have another verse of the Gathas that is specifically for that. But here it was choice. So we focus on the choice. This is the lesson for the students. And I remember talking about it a long time ago. This is also about choice. And the fact that as they get older, they're teenagers and they have a lot of choices. And as they get older, these choices become more difficult. And if they go back to Vahuman and the relationship that it has with Asha, which is doing the right thing because your mind is working properly, then they make decisions at school, because this is the age appropriate class. That's how we look at it. They are presented with peer pressure, with bullying, with drugs and alcohol, that is top of the list, with abortion issues, with gun control. Students, high school kids bring guns to school. This is a fact of life in this country. So we talk about everything that is happening. We talk about the news. If there was a mass shooting in a high school, we talked about it 2 years ago. It was a horrible mass shooting, and I brought it up. And that is also part of this. They are faced with all these choices a lot more than we were when we were teenagers. So we talk about it and we relate it to making a good choice, using your good mind, doing the right thing, as I said, because they're all interconnected. So when we go to this You can read it on your own time. This is about whatever is happening. Activity for students for this choice lesson, which is the Gathas verses, is I just ask them, what responsibilities would you have when you start driving? It's a lot of responsibility to be driving a car that is like 3 tons, and you can go fast and kill somebody, or you can just choose to give a ride to somebody who doesn't have permission to get in your car. Peer pressure comes in. So we talk about that, and the fact that what would you do? Some of these students, they choose not to drive until they're 18. We've had those students, and it's good for the rest of the kids to hear that, because we talk about facts of life, everyday life. What is happening to them is there's the other students will feel it. That's why our technique is the fact that we talk about their lives. We talk about what they have to face every day, from their parents, from their friends, from their teachers, from the bad elements in their environment. They're all either in high school or in middle school. So this is the category that we talk about. Then some of them, we've had a lot of students that reach 18, and we talk about the voting rights. The fact that in some countries there is no such a thing, but in America right now there is freedom, free elections. What does it mean? Would you participate? And this all goes back to, are you strong enough? Are you knowledgeable enough? Do you use your mind? Do you want to pick that choice that you're allowed to do? All of this is everyday life, once again. So I just keep repeating that because I want you to understand that this is our technique. This is what we have. We did it for our children, for our kids. They grew up, they're all working. Some of them are married, but this is what we have continued because it captures their mind better than other subjects, because it's about them. And we always tell them, no other class that you go and take will tell you what is your opinion. In this class, we constantly ask about their opinion because we want to know what they're thinking, how they're thinking that. If it's really a bad way of thought process, we would like to recognize it and kind of like try to deviate from it for them to understand it. So that is very important to our class. Then we talk about election, like I said, and society and how it works. Why is it important for people to express themselves, to tell others how they feel about government issues? Because this, they study all that in school. The other thing is that drinking alcohol. Well, I'm a pharmacist, so it's very, very important to me for them to understand what drugs do to their good mind, the fact that it destroys their good mind. So I like to tell them all this thing. Their parents can't because they don't listen to their parents. I had teenage daughters, so they don't listen. Kids don't listen to their parents. So I just come in and tell them what alcohol does to you, what drugs do to you. And I'm telling you this because this is destroying that good mind that you were supposed to protect, you were supposed to nourish, you were supposed to take care of, so it can make all the right decisions for you. So this is part of our class. We talk about it. And, what would you do if somebody was drinking? Peer pressure. Why would you do such and such? And we all relate it back to the Gathas. We talk about everyday life, but at every class, somehow we connect it to what did the Gathas say? What did Zarathustra say 4,000 years ago when there was no alcohol or drug problem back then, the way it is here, right now? The fact that he just talked about making the right decisions, very general terms, doing the right thing because it's the right thing, can apply to every single situation that is presented in today's life. So we just talk about those, that one verse of the Gathas, and then at the end, we connect it back again to the Gathas and the Zoroastrian religion and, the overall takeaway lesson. These were the 2 examples of what we usually do. Now it's on print. Now we can go back to it and we did this. So maybe it can help some of you. Maybe it cannot. This is not your cup of tea. Perfectly fine. We never claim that this is the best way. It is a way. This is it may work. And even for us, when we have 20 students, they're like, out of the 20, you can see that 4, hopefully, really, really get it. And that 4 people will become better people because that's how we're presenting it. And hopefully, some of this can help you. Hopefully, you can come up with ideas that would help us. And we are just a team, all of us. And I thank you for listening. And hopefully, I added something to your way of teaching. Any
Thank
questions?
you so much. Yeah, to the both of you. If you could stop the share screen, we can kind of see one another. That would be fantastic. Thank you, Mitra. Please go ahead and put your questions in the, Ferdos has a question, has his hands up. Ferdos, go ahead, please.
No, I don't have my hand up for a question. I was applauding for what wonderful.
Oh. Thank you so
It's a
much.
different icon.
So if you have any questions, any comments, please go ahead, put it in the chat box or just unmute yourself and go ahead.
So,
I have a question for all the teachers, actually.
sorry.
Has any student ever asked you that since we focus so much on Wahuman and bright mind and thinking, how does the religion apply to somebody who's handicapped or not so mentally advanced? How do they study Zoroastrianism? How do you teach them Zoroastrianism? Has any student asked you that question?
I have not had that question. I have had question that, you know what, if we say that God is such and such, which we don't talk about Ahura Mazda that much because that is not the focus that we have in this class. If they say, I mean, before even they question, why is somebody born a handicap? And my answer is always the fact that it has nothing to do with God. It has nothing to do with, you know, being fair or not fair. There's always a reason. There's always a logical reason. And our job, the doctor's job, the parent's job is to find out what that reason is. And just to, it is what it is. It is part of Ashar. Things happen because of a reason. If somebody is born handicapped, unfortunately, there is a genetic reason. There is a chemical reason. There is, you know, it's an anomaly. It does happen, yes. And it is sad and bad, but it is what it is. It is part of being understanding Ashar and the consequence of what happens. But I've never had a question, how do you teach to somebody else? When that question comes up, I guess we have to think about it. No, I don't know the answer.
We've had questions where there's fires or tornadoes that destroy people's lives, or people saying, how is that Ashar? So we do go through that explanation of nature is Ashar. Just because we built our house in the wrong place and it was in the path of tornado or fire, that does not make it not Ashar.
Okay, thank you.
How do you guys discuss current issues without a political angle or without a political tinge? I mean, do you have issues with students, either party in the United States, Democrat or Republican? How do you keep the middle path without and discuss the relevance of the issues without getting political?
You know what, that's a very good question, because how can you not be emotional when you know what you are, you know, against and what you are pro, and not present that? It is very difficult to do that, but we do talk about politics and issues, but we always go back, I always go back to what's the logic and what is good for the mass. The fact that a decision is made, it doesn't matter which party is making it. If a decision is made and it's not correct, it's not good for the mass of people and just a group of people, that's wrong, no matter how you look at it. So you don't have to even label it. If you see that, for example, when they are too young for knowing stuff about government and parties and, you know, legislations and all that. They do study it, but just historical. So when they cut the tax of the rich 4 years ago, when, you know, all these corporations, I work for a corporation, when they cut the tax, Like they don't have to pay taxes, when all these billionaires don't have to pay taxes. This is a thing that the politicians are doing. So if you think about it and not put party attached to it, an emotion attached to it, and you say, is that good for the mass of the people or just a few? Does that make sense? Is that renewing this existence by just taking care of a few because they're rich and powerful? That way, if the response is general, then they can see what is right, what is wrong. And I always tell them, 90% of people know what's right, what's wrong. They just don't want to agree with it because it affects them negatively. And if you take yourself out of the equation and see what is happening to the community, what is happening to the country, what is happening to this universe, and make a decision based on that, then you make the right decision. Then you know which side is right, which side is wrong. It's very difficult. It is not an easy thing to say or do. We are all humans. We have emotions, but we are just telling them, I am telling them, this is choice. You make a decision based on what is good for everyone, what is good for others. And then you know what is right, what is wrong.
Thank you.
Ashtover, please go ahead.
Yeah, Fariba and Mitra, I really appreciated what you said, because I also teach kids from 3 to 18 and the older group between 12 and 18. I pretty much echo what you said to them too. But about the drugs and alcohol thing that you mentioned, teaching teenagers, high school students who are getting ready to go to college, some of them may actually be in first or second year of college. No matter how good those kids are, no matter how much they believe in the Gothic principles, they may be really great at using those principles in their everyday life. But there are some circumstances that almost every child in college is going to go through, an experience of drugs, or almost every, I'm not saying every, but it's more likely to happen than not with the best of the kids, that they would experience drinking. So is there anything that you talk to these children about? What should they do if they do go through that? Or if they are in a group and they're all drinking, and you notice that your friends are drinking way more than they should be. So what do you do at that time? Do you then stop and keep your mind sane so you can be helpful to the rest of the group? Do you have those kind of discussions? And also, when you mentioned gender equality, you talked about how our gathas are so beautiful in addressing both men and women. At that time, Zarathustra was, even though he may be aware that there are more than just men and women, there are gays and lesbians and, all kinds of people in the world, it was probably not that easy to address those people at that time. But in today's world, we so openly are inclusive with every kind of human being, with every human being, basically. So when you talk about inclusivity, do you talk about being fair and just and loving and kind with every human being, including, the LGBTQ community?
We actually did talk about all that. Yes, we have talked about it. And I always tell them that gender equality does not exist. Not in this country, not in Iran for sure, not in every country that you can imagine. Gender equality this is what I believe and this is what I teach. Gender equality doesn't mean that men and women are equal. They are not. We are not equal. We are not equal physiologically. We are not equal spiritually. We are not equal. We are not equal. Just we are like apples and oranges. However, gender equality means giving equal opportunity to all mankind. That is gender equality. And that has to be practiced. And I want them to understand that you need to think about this. You need to ask for it. You need to pursue it, that you should be given equal opportunities. But they need to understand that in this world, there is no such a thing. Not even in America. I work for a company that, men are getting more money than women, and they're getting better jobs, and they're moving up faster. So as long as they understand the fact that no, it doesn't exist, but yes, it should exist. When the Achaemenian dynasty were just, ruling the world, it did exist to the most of our knowledge. They did practice it. They did treat women and men equal. That's why we had women queens, admirals, police at 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. So we do talk about it, gays, lesbian, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. As long as you have XX or XY chromosome, you should be treated equally. That is part of being a good human being. That is part of being a progressive person in this day and age. Going back to your question about drugs and alcohol, yes, I know the fact that kids are using it. It is all over high school. It is all over middle school. They're selling it, they're buying it, they're seeing it, peer pressure is there. So when I talk about it, I talk about the scientific version of it. I'm just privileged to be working, where I'm working. So I see the effect of drugs and alcohol on children. So I tell them about that. I tell them the facts about using drugs, how you fry your brain. I actually talked about it the other day, and I said, if any drug alters your mind, it's not good. It's killing that good mind. So I related back again to Vahuma. If a drug is making you feel good for a short while or make you depressed for a short while, this is affecting that brilliant mind that you have that wasn't touched like 5 years ago, that had the ability to learn, that has the ability to get better, bigger, and like a sponge absorb knowledge. You are altering that. Knowing that you want to do it, goes back to choice again. And I remember when our kids were in our class, like 10 years ago, they were talking about peer pressure and the fact that, other kids are doing such and such, or they're giving parties, or they're doing drugs, and how can they say no? And at that point, I remember telling them, just tell all your friends that are pushing you. This was my suggestion back then. I don't know if I would do the same suggestion today, but I said, just tell them you can't do it because your mom is psycho. Your mom would just lose it and kick you out of the house. Just lie, just to get out of that situation. And believe it or not, some of them did. Some of them would tell their friends because they were being pushed to smoking a cigarette and they didn't want to do it. They said, if my mom finds out, she's going to kill me. And I told them, no parent would be upset with you if you use them as a deterrent. There are many, many ways. Go seek help. Ask somebody how to get out of a situation. So there are ways, and they need to know that every kid is different. Every family dynamic is different. Friends are different. But they need to know it is their choice. They have to come up with a solution. Because once again, 4,000 years ago in the Gathas, it says, use your good mind and make the right decision, Asha, to achieve Ushta, and that comes later. So it's all about children and kids and teenagers and adults to understand that you are in charge of your destiny. You are in charge of your happiness. It doesn't happen all the time. It hasn't happened to me. We are all stressed. We are unhappy. We can be depressed. Everybody has its downfalls. But the point is, you need to believe that I am in charge of that. Nobody else can do it for me. I can ask for help. I can go to resources. I can practice this. I can read that. I can meditate. There's so many ways to make you a better person, a stronger person, but it's up to you. You got to do it. I cannot do it for you. I'm a teacher. I'm suggesting all these things. I'm telling you, you are capable if you go after it. So in a way, my job as a Gatha teacher is to let them know that they are capable, they have the potentials. If they fail, and we all do, it is on me. Get up, do it differently, do it again until you get the right results. The reward is for me, the punishment is for me, the decision is on me. So that's how we talk about different issues in class, and we talk about everything. There's nothing off the table. We talk about
Fariba?
suicide. We talk, you name it, we talk about it.
Fariba, just Mitra, taking this a little bit step further, because I have encountered this with some kids in my own class, kids that are in high school, who have confided in me how they struggle watching their friend undergo these experiences of, under the influence, but they are so loyal in their friendships with one another that they'd rather choose to be loyal to their friend and not tell any grown-up about it in school, or to their own parents, or to the parents of the child who is doing drugs or smoking. They'd rather be loving and loyal to their friend than do the sane or the rational thing. So how do you tell or teach these children that, our actions, actually other people's happiness and unhappiness really depends on our own actions or lack of actions? It's not just that we do what we do for our own selves. Everybody lives for others in this world, whether we like it or not, and whether we realize it or not. What I do is going to have an impact on other people who I live with or in the world. So how do you get this into the mind of a teenager who is struggling with being loyal to a friend she's extremely close to, and not telling the grown-ups in her world that could bring help to that child who is going through that problem?
Fariba and Mitra Jan, can you do a 1 minute answer, because Ferdos and Hovi also have questions. We want to get to them as well.
Sure, since I talk faster than Fariba, so I'm going to go answer this one. First of all, we are not psychiatrists, we are not counselors, we are not therapists. But if it was me, because I have an opinion about everything, I would tell that person who approaches me, like, you'd rather be loyal than be a good friend. Because being a good friend doesn't mean that you're always, supporting that person. That is not being a good friend. Most of the times, being a good friend is to tell the truth. If your friend is not, this is a simple response. If they are not wearing an appropriate dress, instead of you telling them to go and change it, everybody is going to make fun of them. Would that be cool with you? So it's a choice. Once again, you choose to be this good friend, that friend to be appreciative, or you choose to be a good friend to save that person's life. It's a choice, and you just let them think about it. And once again, you're not the parent. I am not the parent. You're there to just give suggestions. If they don't want to take it, it's their choice. And tell them it's your choice. If your choice ends up killing that kid or overdosing or whatever, can you live with that? Are you going to remain a good friend? So just let them know at any age, you have to make a choice. Is it good for me, or is it good for that friend?
Thank you, Mitra Jan. Ferdos, please go ahead.
I have 3 issues, but if I'm taking too much time, stop me, and we'll go later on, we'll see. This issue about selecting your leader or getting into the world of politics, the Yathavaryo or the Aunavar gives us a direction. It says over there, on what basis do we select our Ratu, our teacher, our role model, or somebody who we look up to, be like. Of course, it has been interpreted as selecting a king and all that, but no, in the good old days, it was difficult to select king. But today we do it through democracy or voting or whatever you want to say. There was a young Zoroastrian person in my life, a good friend, 40 years younger to me at that time. And then later on, he knew what I did for the community and got elected so many different positions, etc., etc. So he asked me, I want to run as a trustee of the panchayat, and I want some advice. What do you think I should do? I said, I really don't know the details of what this panchayat does in day-to-day life. But once you're going to get into this politics issue, I can share some simple principles with you that I have applied in my life, basically from what I've learned from Zarathustra's ideology. And that is, everybody plays politics. We play politics within family, within school, within place of work, etc., etc. So then what is politics? It is application of whatever you want to do to get the results that you want to achieve of your knowledge, information, knowing who is what, etc., etc. So I said, just like anything in politics also, there is good politics and there is bad politics. So if you want to play good politics, you will do well. Then he asked me, but how do I know what is good politics and what is bad politics? So I told him, in my simple understanding of what I have done in my life with all the Anjumans and everybody that you may know of, if you do that political activity with the intention and the goal of helping others, that is good politics. If you do it with the intention of helping yourself and not the others, it's bad politics. And I left it at that, and he turned out to be an extremely good trustee later on. The second thing I want to discuss is about this concept of drugs or cigarettes, or etc. Yes, it is difficult. I do understand, and it's easy for me to say because I went through that 50 years ago. The world is very different in 50 years' time. But when I was kind of going through high school time, and of course, many of my friends were smoking, and they would all say, hey, why don't you take a puff, or why don't you try one? I never, so far, and I'm not trying to boast or anything, I've never puffed anything in my life. Cigarette or cigar or BD or cigarette or whatever. No such thing, nothing. And why? Because when I was like that and my friends were pushing me, I went to my father one time and I asked him, it's getting to be very, very difficult for me to say no to my very good friends because they keep on pushing that I should have a smoke. So my father said, well, it's up to you. It's your decision, but I can give you some understanding of my life. And I found that if you start to smoke, first thing is you lose stamina. So if you are in sports and you're trying to achieve, prizes or victory in bicycling or running or swimming, this will affect your stamina right away, and you will ruin your chances in that field. Second thing, of course, you will do is hurt your health, not if in the short run, but in the long run. So I'm telling you, there is nothing really good about smoking that you need. There is no good virtue. So I would rather not do it, but I'm telling you this today as an advice for free. Someday you will pay a doctor to tell you the same thing. So I said, okay, I'll take the free advice. Why do I want to pay the doctor? And this is what happened. And the third thing I did was in the cigarette issue, and this is with my life. Good friends of mine, even today, they are good friends with my school days, college days friends. Finally, one time I told my friend who was pushing it too much. So I told him to his face, like, if you give me a cigarette next time, push me, I'm going to take the cigarette and squish it in my hand and put all the tobacco on the floor. He says, no, you're not going to do that. You can't do that. I said, okay, then don't mess with me. Don't try. So he did push me again. And I took the cigarette, squished it up, put the tobacco on the floor. And by the way, in those days when I grew up, you could buy one cigarette at the store. Not the whole pack was not necessary. It was so expensive for us young kids that we could not afford to buy a pack. So people went and bought one cigarette. And this guy came from a rich family, so he had the best brand like Benson and Hedges. And he was so angry with me. How can you do this? This is such an expensive cigarette. I said, hey, for me, it is worthless anyways. Why did you? I told you, I'm not going to use it. Even today, he's still my best friend. So friendship has nothing. The issue was whatever it is. We got over it. He knew he would not push me anymore. So that's what happened in cigarettes. And then the other thing that I can share with you is the young adult classes, like 20 years to 40 years. A special class where the young people of that Anjuman at that time said, Uncle, we want you to do this with us. But the condition was no parent could be coming in that class. No parent was allowed. The children, the young people said, no parents. I said, okay, that's what you want. No parent. I was the only kind of older person in that group. The parents could not ask me any question. What did my daughter ask? What did my son say? They cannot do that. And even if they do, I'm not going to answer them. But if the children wanted to ask their parents, or the parents wanted to ask the children, that was allowed. I said, you look after it with your parents. I'm not going to interfere. I'm just going to, and it was the best thing I did in life for myself. Because every time we met and we talked about a certain topic and I asked them, okay, next time, what do you want to talk about? And they would give me a topic. So now I would have to go and learn and study the scriptures or whatever is available in the books, etc., etc. And yes, the times can be different. Today, it's very different. But the issues, human values and issues are same over hundreds of years. And what you talk about in terms of what does our religion say about suicide? Not only suicide, they ask me, Firdaus uncle, tell us what our religion says and where in what book that euthanasia is acceptable or not. Euthanasia is a special level of suicide, okay? Very conditional. And if our religion is pro-life, then it should all be anti-Dr. Steve. But it's not like that. Again, we are given the good mind to think about it, reason it, why it is supposed to happen. Is it better to do it or not, etc., etc. And I said it is different from different people. So I cannot tell myself whether euthanasia is good for you. The only person in this world I can answer for is whether it's good for me. And you have to do the same thing for yourself. So
freedom of choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Freedom of choice.
These are the few things that I've done lots of things, but I don't want to be here till the cows come home.
Thank you, Firdaus. Hovi, please go ahead.
If you have any such questions, anybody, you're most welcome. I enjoy working with issues like that, and I do it only because I learn a lot too. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So Fariba and Mitra, first of all, thank you. I really learned a lot. And the thing that I really took away from your class today was the fact that you use the word nourishment. I absolutely love that word, because I've often talked about protection, protecting the Bahumana. But using the word protection, I think really resonates a lot more for me, and I think would resonate better with the students as well. I happen to be a mental health professional, so I kind of connect the mind and body, and I kind of say, and I kind of talk about the mind and body connection. So when I talk about making choices and free will, I often talk about, okay, if we want to protect our Bahumana and we put things into our mind, we're also protecting our body, because it is a mind and body connection. So I'm actually going to steal the word nourishment from you guys, and I'm going to use nourishment when I talk about the mind-body connection. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Hovi. Any other questions? Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Go ahead, Loveji. Go ahead, please.
Okay. My question was a kind of follow-up on what Dolu said, that if you have an injured mind, because injured in a physical sense, okay, then what is that person's eventual responsibility? I mean, can he be as responsible as somebody with a perfect mind or a good mind? Or is that there has to be a different judgment for that person? If somebody can answer that, that would be interesting, I think.
I'd like to jump in, if that's okay with you, Mitra Fariba.
Sure.
So when you're talking, Loveji, about a mind that's hurt in any way, what makes a person who is of sound mind not have a hurt mind? So how would you consider to be a person who is of sound mind, but who is also a sociopath or a murderer? would that not be considered a person, you know, he's got a sound mind, but obviously he's not making good choices.
Yeah, that's
So-
that's a thing about choice, you know. But this
Right.
person cannot make a choice. I mean, because his brain just doesn't work well.
Well,
Then-
I mean, if you have to actually look at the research, even with sociopaths and psychopaths, there is a chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
There are deficits in the brain. So, you know, I mean, what are we talking about? Because I mean, in my class, I have a couple of kids who are on the autism spectrum. So would you consider that to be a deficit? I don't see that as a deficit. I see that as whatever capacity they have, they're going to make the choices that are best for them.
But can they make the choices?
Sure, they can, because they do ask the questions. I mean, they are functioning. They are on the autism spectrum, but they are functioning, and they can to the best of their abilities. And I mean, what is it about being a Zarathustri? It's about doing the best that you possibly can, given the choices that you have, right? And that's what it is. It's about leading, you know, that's basically it. So even if you have a mind that's not working 100%, because it's all very relative. Even if we are of sound mind, you know.
And I understand that.
Right.
But my question was more about what is the moral responsibility of a person who cannot make the right choices because of a problem with their brain?
I don't really want to go into research here, but your moral compass, no matter who you are, is developed very early in life. So the good and the bad comes very early on in life. And it's also a little bit about the nature. It's a little bit about the nurture. So I don't want to go into research here because you're making me go into my psychology background. But when it comes to, you know, talking about individuals and talking about the kids in our class, I think making things relative the way Fariba and Mitra are doing, I think is brilliant, because I think it has to be relative to what our kids are going through in the current, you know, in their current lives. I mean, that's really, really important. We cannot be teaching religion, you know, just out of a vacuum. It has to be made contextual to what our kids are undergoing. And what we went through growing up in this country was completely different from what's happening to them right now. So I think it's really, really important.
I just want to add something, because I think this is just the salt and pepper of this whole talk, is that I have always told them that a cat is born a cat and stays a cat. So does a dog and a parakeet. They are whole creatures. Human beings are not like that. We are born nothing. We don't know anything. We cannot do anything. We have to learn to become human. And that learning capacity is what we're focusing on. That is why Zarathustra said, use your Vahuman, nourish it, protect it, put good information in it. So as we get older, from the age that we are born and we are just hopeless and helpless, and we can die within minutes if our parents don't embrace us, if they don't give us, you know, the nursing process doesn't go on. We have to learn. We have to learn when we are children. Our parents teach us, but at some point, that's becoming a Zoroastrian. You need to know that now you have the capability to become better, to progress. And that can happen to anyone at any level. Not everybody is born a very intelligent person. Nobody is. So what we do, the whole point is it's on us. We need to teach these kids that they're responsible for that. The more they learn, the more they apply themselves, the more they work, the better human beings they become. And that is the teachings of the Gathas.
Yeah, one of the other things we've seen, and I work with the high school age group, is just school stress. I mean, just the academic stress of getting grades and class rank and all that. It seems to have skyrocketed in the last few years. I know it's always been there, but it's gotten worse and seems to be even more competitive now with the whole COVID thing. So we try and deal with that also. Mm-hmm. One question I've had, and I've had a couple of kids come up to me and ask me, and again, a little bit controversial, but I mean, have you had people come, like, you know, high school kids come up to you and say, my parents think I should be dating a Zarathustri, I don't think so. Have you had those kind of discussions?
I know they have it in their mind, but they don't ask. Persian kids usually don't ask many questions.
Okay.
But once again, it's a choice.
Right.
Be aware. People need to be aware of what they're choosing. I have always, this is my belief, that when you research things, when you are aware of what's going on, when you find somebody that matches you, that person can be anyone, but background counts, religion counts, ideology counts, family background counts. All of these sameness would help you in the future. So yes, I would tell them that that is part of the discussions that we have, not because they ask a question, just because in life they are growing up to go and marry somebody. But to choose the right person is very important. And that right person has to match them as much as possible. And still after 10 years, everybody's having marital problem. But we talk about that. We all do. I mean, it all starts with love and loving. And there is a psychotherapist that always says, Dr. Holokoy, I have to give him credit. He always says, opposites attract, but then they attack, which is true. Think when you're opposite, you attract and all that, you get together, you're in love, all that infatuation. But after a while, all those things that are not the same, all those differences will magnify and cause, separations. So we did talk about that too. But once again, if you are aware of what you're doing, if you think about everything that you're doing, if you choose correctly, no matter what it is that you're choosing, your spouse, your friend, your degree that you want to be in, your job that you're choosing, then that's what counts. You need to know what you're doing. And that all comes with you taking responsibility and learning about what is happening.
Thank
Good
you,
answer.
Mitra. Thank you, Nozak. Firdosh has his hand up.
Just to support what Lavji was saying, and the next question also, that in my class that I mentioned about the young adults where they could ask anything, etc., without their parents being there. And that was the reason for parents not to be there. That kind of gave them the students the comfort to be able to ask those questions. Anyway, one of the questions was that affects me, what Lavji was saying is, what does our religion say about temporary insanity? These are serious concepts that we need to analyze if we want to teach our kids in a way of what our religion says. Sure, there are basic do's and don'ts, and can we do this, can we? But stuff like this, euthanasia, premarital sex, doesn't even have to be a, now if you tend to deviate from the Gatha, and which is, Gatha is more like a deductive logic. It gives you rules and principles that you apply, and then come up with an answer that you can feel content inside. Gathas do not tell you don't smoke or don't do this. 4,000 years ago, how could Zoroaster know that today we will have a cigarette with tobacco and a filter paper and all that? He could not have put that. And if he made that kind of a list, that list would be 10,000 pages long of what you can and cannot do. So he just gives you the principles that you apply to all actions to come up with the result that is in line with progressive nature. So there is that part about temporary insanity and all this kind of stuff. But I think we need to, as Zarathustrians, go beyond that. What is important from what I am learning from the Gatha is that not to get crazy about who did this, why it happened, try to be judgmental, or he must have done something in his last birth. Oh, we know that Aura Mazda will not do anything to hurt us. We are his brother, sister, children, friend, whatever. So forget about what you have to do about that child or that person. What are you going to do about it? That is the main question in our system. So we do research, we do whole kinds of education, we do figuring out and try to how to help these people with whatever affliction is there in the best way we can. And even if in that research, and I have participated in a double-blind study, where even if that study, that research did not help me, I could have even died in that study because they make you sign a piece of paper saying you can't sue them. What happens there, in my understanding, was, and even if that thing didn't work at all for me, or work badly for me, at least the knowledge that we have gained from that process can be used to apply to others and save them. So that's what I'm trying to say. Focus on yourself inside as to what you can do the best for the world.
Thank you, Ferdosh, and thank you everyone for joining, mostly Mitra and Faiba, for the wonderful presentation. And we hope to see everyone next time.
Thank you.
Have a good evening,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.